Hey everyone, and welcome back to Mike's Speedy Motors. So the Yamaha C3, aka Big Booty Trudy, is going under the knife again. I'm going to start the actual build series for this guy, girl, whatever you want to consider it. And because yeah, like the black plastic dip, that was all just kind of temporary, just to make it look a little bit better while I was waiting for parts to come in. So now I've got everything. So we're going to be doing the custom LED tail light. We've got a new LED headlight. I've got the bad boy, big boy, I forget exactly what it's called, big bore kit from Rolling Wrench that we're going to be slapping on here. I also have a stretch kit and side stand from XF50 Moto. And then also, there won't be a video on this, but I have all new plastics for this. And so I'm going to get them painted. I haven't decided if I'm going to do it myself or take them somewhere yet. And so then, yeah, once we put it back together, she'll be complete, new paint, everything. And I'm excited for it. So hopefully you guys are too. So with that, if you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can see the upcoming stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into this and start taking some of these panels off and get this taillight uninstalled. I got the taillight off, but while doing that, since I had to take off a couple panels to just get that off, I decided to just keep going because eventually this all needs to come off anyways for what I'm doing. So I just went ahead and pulled it all off. So she's naked right now. But let me go ahead and grab the camera and I'm going to get you a little closer look at the taillight and the parts that I have that we're going to be making this custom light with, and then we'll go from there. So here's the stock taillight pulled off. Its ugliness, if you will. One thing that I think is really weird is in the taillight itself, your brake light's only the center section, your brake and running light, and there's nothing in these here. But if you look, they had spots for blinkers. And for some reason, I don't know, maybe this is just the US domestic market where they didn't get them, and maybe the Giggle and the Vox did. But for whatever reason, in the US market, at least, they went with these big ugly things. So we're going to de-uglify it, and all of this will be cut out. We're actually going to have like a cut here that kind of makes an arc over there, and that pretty much that whole thing comes out. Because I still need this section here for stability, because the side panels on the C3 actually bolt or mount to the bottom here, so they're not just flopping. So we're gonna do that. But another thing I think is kind of odd is every single light has its own connector instead of using kind of like one connector. So I'll be remedying that when I do this. But what I've got are these two little, I think they're 8-inch LED strips. And these are, I just got them off of Amazon, and I'll put a link in the description if anyone wants them. I believe that these are the exact same strip that's like on my taillight on my Ruckus, which is from the Ruck Shop. And the Dorby Work one, I think is the same one. They're a little bit longer, but I believe they're the same one because they act the exact same. So the reason why I'm doing two is because if you've watched my Ruckus video with the taillight, whenever you hit the brake, it overtakes everything. So if you have your blinker on, you hit the brake, it's just your brake light flashing, your blinker goes away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the running light hooked up on both of them. And then on, say, maybe just the top one will be brake light, and then the bottom one will be your blinkers. So that way if you've got your blinker on and you hit your brake, this one will flash and this one won't. And then that way you'll still be able to see both functions. And I went ahead and I just cut this little piece of plastic that I've had for a long time that I'm going to get these mounted to, like that, and I'll take my heat gun and bend it so it's more contoured to that, and it'll go behind the lens. And then I also picked up both of these from WeBike out of Japan, our new taillight lenses, and they're I think about 20 bucks a piece. I wasn't sure if I wanted the smoked one or the clear one, so I just bought both. So once we get it all wired up and everything like that, we can decide which one we like, and then yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and start unbolting this stuff here, get my Dremel, and cut that out. Get rid of all the ugliness. I went ahead and pulled off the blinkers and the reflector and license plate mount, and also the license plate lights. One thing I didn't mention in the last one, and I'll mention now, is my license plate. Since this whole mounting area is going to be cut off, I'm going to make it kind of like my Ruckus, where I'm going to make a little mount over here on the CVT, and then I'll run some new license plate lights to it. So now, with this cleaned off, you can see much better where we need to cut. And I'm probably going to cut from the backside just to make it easier to follow this line. Because then again, like I said, that keeps all the structure here so that it won't be just wobbly. But we'll do that first. I'm going to pop this off because I'm going to get pretty close to it down here and I don't want to break it more so than it is. Normally there's two little screws. Let's see. One goes right there and one goes over here. But this lens is already busted when I got it. So usually you can unscrew those and then it pops out from the bottom and then you got 3 clips on the top that hold it. Alright, so that one's out of there. And now you could even kind of just throw that on there real quick. That's the smoked one. And that's the clear one. They both look pretty good. Still not sure what I'm going to do. So another thing besides cutting this out with the Dremel, I need to take these down a little ways. Because these actually go all the way up to the lens. And if I'm going to use that as my mounting point, it wouldn't work. So I need to cut it back a ways and then I can use it. So I'm going to grab the Dremel and get to cutting. So there's that cut out. It's just still rough right now. I'm just going to get my basic shape and then I'll clean it up off camera just so it looks nicer. Yeah, like I said, just for now. So now I need to then, like I was already saying, take my Dremel and notch these. So that's what I'm going to do next. So these are notched down a little bit more now too. Not by a whole lot. You can see just that much was taken off. Just so that this plate, again, I'm going to bend it, but this plate will go across here and then not be smashed against the headlight. Or it should be the taillight lens. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and keep cleaning these up, and I'm just going to do that off camera because it's not fun to watch. Get these and these, all this cleaned up, and then I'll be back in just a moment. Well, here's how the taillight turned out. You see I got this all trimmed up and cleaned up as best I can. Those are knocked back a bit, and then I did remember to add a little notch here so that the wires on the lights can wrap around and have somewhere to pass through. And I popped out the stock socket so I can use that as my exit for the wiring. So one thing I'm going to do too is I'm going to paint this all black because I don't want this silver standing out from behind the lights and it might look weird. So I'm just going to spray it all black. So I'm going to do that, and then while that's drying, we can move on to getting the LED strips onto this plastic strip I made, and then I did go ahead and bend it, just give it a little bit of curve to follow the light. So let me move over to the other bench and we'll get to some wiring. Alright, so here's the light strips. This is how it came out of the package with a little box on it, but I've already removed it off this one, and there's a bunch of like silicone in there, so it's sealed. I've removed that. I'm going to do it the same with the other one, but if you look here, you can see there's only 3 wires here that go out to the strip itself. Just a power ground and a data wire. And I don't need this much slack on the cable because it's just going to go on here and then wrap around, and then I'll mount the board on the back. So I'm going to grab my soldering iron and desolder this so I can shorten it. And then I'm also going to get this one here out of the package, and I'll be back in just a second. So I went ahead and got the LED strips mounted to the plate that I'm going to use, and then shortened the cables. Here you can see it just unsoldered them, cut them down, and resoldered them back on there, and then mounted the circuit boards with just some double-sided sticky tape for now. And now we can get to this wiring here, which this is what goes to the bike side. And so right now the wiring is identical on both of these. So you got a black, red, yellow, green, blue on both. Black's your ground, red is your just 12 volts for your running light, yellow is your brake light, and then blue and green are your turn signals. I forget which one's which right now off the top of my head. So what I'm going to do is it's going to go mounted this way. I want running light on both of them, just the brake on the top one, and the blinkers on the bottom one. So to do that, I can just take my soldering iron And then this is the bottom one here, and I don't want the brake to go to that. So I'm just going to unsolder the yellow wire. Okay, so then that one's good because it'll have running light and blinkers. And then on this one, I don't want the blinkers, so I can just unsolder those. All right, I'm gonna get a little jumper wire, and on both my grounds and my running lights, the black and reds, I'm just going to jumper from one down to the bottom so that I have just one wire to hook up for each. And I can unsolder these two, and then I can create my harness. So I'll be back in just a second. All right, so I got my jumpers made here for the power or running light and ground, and then we got our brake light and our two turn signal wires. So we got both the boards integrated together. So let's take it over to the battery and the C3 and make sure this thing works. All right, so here's the C3, what's left of it right now. I went ahead and just put the black wire into the negative of the battery here, and then you can see if I hook up the red one, this is my running light. They both turn on. I use the yellow, it's the brake light. Just on the top one like I wanted. Green should be my right blinker. And then the blue should be the left blinker. And now the reason I wired this up is because normally, like if I had the blinker on just one of these strips like that, and then I hit the brake, this would overtake it. And then your blinker would just stop blinking, which I wasn't a big fan of. So now, like say if I have this blinker and the brake light, you can see it's blinking red on the top and the amber sweeping on the bottom. So okay, now what I'm going to do is take this back over to the bench. I got a hot glue gun heating up over there. I'm going to cover all this here in the hot glue now that it's working to help protect these connections so they don't snap off. And then also to kind of help waterproof it a little bit. And so I'm going to do that real quick. And then we can get this thing mounted into the taillight itself. So here's how the back of the taillight turned out. I did miss a couple spots covering it with the glue, but it's mostly for like splash protection or whatever, because there's not supposed to be much moisture in the taillight at all. So now I'm ready to pretty up the wiring here. I'm going to put some of this wire loom on it and stuff. And originally I was going to just put a little connector at the back of the taillight so that this could come off without having to unwire it all the way. But looking at how far it needs to go, I'm probably just going to do this. So, or use all of this and then just run it down there. And then once I get that all cleaned up and ran through there, I'm ready to mount this into the actual taillight housing itself. And the way I'm going to do that is there's a little bit of plastic here on both sides. You can see. I'm going to drill a little hole on both, or excuse me, all four of them, and then also the plate. And then I can just run little zip ties through and just to hold it in place. So I'm going to go do that, and I'll be back. So I went ahead and connectorized it, and I used my 3D printed connectors I've made. And so the tail light now is all installed in the housing. And now that means we can put our lens on. So to do this, you put the top in first, carefully. There's 3 tabs on the top. Trying to break your lens. There we go. And then there's 2 screws that just get put back in. And voila, it's all together. The only thing I have left to do now is I'm making a little adapter harness that will go from this connector to the scooter side, because it was on 5 different connectors or something like that. So I'm just going to take the signals I need out of each one into one connector and then make that. And then we can test this thing, see how it looks. Well, I went ahead and set the trunk, I don't know what you want to call this, the storage box seat thing back on here. That way I can just kind of mock up, or I'll go ahead and install the taillight just so it's in position, and I can figure out how long this little adapter needs to be. And this is that harness I was talking about where there's just a ton of connectors. But there was only 3 connectors and 2 bullets, so I lied when I said there was 5. My bad. So we got one this is the running light and brake light. This is your left blinker, and this is your right blinker. And then there's this one with the 2 bullet connectors. This was just for the license plate light. And so these ones aren't going to go to the tail light now because the license plate's not going to be there anymore. At some point, get a little mount made up for on the CVT, like on the Ruckus. So I'm going to go ahead and get the tail light mounted, and then see how far this little adapter harness needs to be. That way I don't have it either too short or too long. I'll do it in place, and then we can test it and see what this taillight looks like. Alright, so here's my little harness adapter I made. I just reused the factory plugs since I still had them, and they're color coordinated. And then just pinned it out into one of my 3D printed ones. So now I can plug it into the taillight. Again, with these connectors, be really careful because these pins can bend and then not work. Alright, there she is. And then it'll get zip tied up when I finalize this, but go ahead and move the camera and let's see how this taillight looks. Alright, let's turn this bike on and see what she looks like. So, key on, I'll just get our running light. Ooh. And then our brake light flashes. Left blinker. Right blinker. And now blinker and brake, which you cannot do on the other one, or with just one of these strips. Awesome, so she looks pretty good. Alright, the LED taillight's all done. I think it looks pretty cool. Actually, leave me a comment, let me know what you guys think. Do you think you like it or not? But with that, that's going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. I'm leaving the bike as is because, like I said, this is a build series. I'm not going to be putting it back together right now. This is part 1 of many, and next one is going to be the LED headlight we're putting in here. So, if you guys want to follow along with this build, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't. If you like watching this stuff, give me a like. And with that, I'll catch you guys in the next episode. See ya.